Now we've got a general idea for the way that client-side apps call your server-side JavaScript functions. Let's go into a bit more detail. The first thing that the app does, if you remember, let's just put it into preview mode again, is to list all of the companies from that database. So let's just concentrate on that particular thing to start with. So when the app starts, it calls the refresh list function. That's thanks to the onAppStarted event. Let me just refresh you there. So there is the onAppStarted event, and it calls refresh list. Okay, now let's look at how that works. So what we're doing is calling the server-side JavaScript function with call SSJ, calling the name of the function. Now the parameters, this is the first thing to really concentrate on. There's no fixed way for passing parameters. You can pass in a single variable. You can pass in an array. You can pass in an object. Here I'm passing in an object as it happens. Now whichever parameter, however you pass your parameters across, it must always be passed as an array, even if it's just one variable or, like here, one object. So you have to really decide how to handle this based on your app. In our particular case, we're sometimes passing in an ID. So if I've clicked on a company in that list, it passed back a customer or company ID. And I'm also passing across sometimes some field data. So if I've updated my details, my customer and country details, and I press the save button, it needs to pass that data back. So there's all sorts of different bits of data depending on the action that I'm taking. So the way I've chosen to do it is to create an object here called P, and then I just put various different things inside my object. In the case of this one here, I've got a key called action, and the action name is get customers. If I look at, for instance, what happens when I create a new customer, let's go to that one. You can see here the object P looks slightly different. I've got the action is now called add customer, and then I've got another key inside it which itself contains an object which is the company name, and it's extracting the field from the app, and the country, and it's extracting the field as well for the country. So P is going to look different in each case. So let's go back to the where it lists the customers. So I've just got a simple action, guess customers. There are no further parameters. This is resetting a widget, clearing widgets, and now I'm calling SSJ with the P object as the only element of the array. Now let's look at the server side, and here's our server folder, acdemows. That's the name of the function that we've called with call SSJ. And again, I've mentioned this a couple of times, we're creating an object with ssj.getConnection, so we're getting a database connection object. And now, again, this is just the way it works for me. There's no fixed way to do this. This is just for this particular demo app. I'm looking at the action key and saying, well, what is the action? If it's add customer, I'm going to call this, and so on. I'm, if you remember, calling get customers. That's this one here. So it's going to call underscore get customers. Underscore means, by the way, if you've used the underscore function name, it cannot be referenced directly from anywhere except another server-side JavaScript function. So underscore get customers, and I pass in the connection object. So let's go and find that. You can see I've got a virtual folder here and a virtual file called dbselects, and there is get customers. Now you can see the beauty here of the database abstraction. It makes accessing your database very, very easy. So I'm getting an object back. Select object equals, there's my connection object, select from customers, order by company name. And that object then I'm going to execute that object with copt.exec, and that returns a result set which I return back to the client. That will effectively trigger a callback on the client. So if I go back to the client side, it's this one here, this function is going to be called as soon as it's got data or generates an error. So if there's an error, I'm just going to display error, whatever the message was from the server. On the other hand, if it's successful, there's no error, then I'm going to populate the list box widget with data that's come back from the database. So here you can see how the data is returned. It's basically an object, and the first field is the company name, the second one is the ID. The ID in this case gets hidden, and I use that ID when I click on it, for instance, to go and get the company name and the country from the database. I pass in that ID field. So that's it. Everything is the same. So let's just go straight on to the situation where I click on one. And so let's have a look. So it's on selection change here. So if I click on the list box customers on selection change, what I'm doing is I'm getting n-cell customer. That is the ID, in fact, that hidden value that I populated the list box with is new value.value. So that's the ID. And now I'm doing the same thing as I did before. I'm creating an object. The action is get customer. The ID is n-cell customer, calling server-side JavaScript with that parameter, those parameters being passed in this P object. And if we go over to the server side again, you can see we're looking at get customer. That comes through to here, and there you can see, here it is. Get it's running effectively. Imagine a select statement from customers where ID equals, and there's the p.id field. And again, it returns a result set which will just contain one object. So there's quite a lot to digest there, but hopefully the principle is fairly easy to understand. Again, refer to the user guide. There's pretty extensive documentation on how the server-side database functions work. It's very elegant, very easy to master once you get the hang of it, even if the initial principles seem a little bit complex. Once you've got it, you can do pretty well anything you need to write database-centric apps.